Salutare! Sunt Cristiana Oprea, pilot de raliu și ambasador Autovit.ro. Astăzi, povestea de drum lung îl are ca invitat pe Christian Gisy, CEO OLX Group, pasionat de mașini și împătimit al sporturilor. Este fost jucător profesionist de tenis și actualmente pilot de circuit în Le Mans Cup. Așadar, cu siguranță urmează o discuție foarte interesantă despre mașini, dar și despre industria auto. Christian, welcome and thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Of course, as a rally driver, I am very excited to hear all about your racing stories. But first, I want to start by asking you, from where do you have your passion from cars? And if you, when you were a kid, you were dreaming of becoming a race car driver?
Christiana, thank you very much for having me here, and it's a big pleasure and honor to be here. And obviously, I'm more than happy to give you a bit of insight of where basically my car passion is coming from. I grew up in Africa. To make the story a bit longer, I grew up in Africa, and in those days we were playing around with Matchbox cars. Matchbox was a brand of smaller cars, and that's basically where I started to have the passion. And when I'm saying when I was younger, I'm talking about the age of 2.5, 3 years old. And sometimes those Matchbox cars I used to trade in against chameleons, against hedgehogs. So I basically that's how it started, and I never lost the passion. And it's not because of my family. My family was never, so if I remember my father and so on, there was never a big passion for the car. We had nice cars, but he was never so passionate. That's something that grew in me probably out of those days.
Cool. And do you remember when did you see the first race competition, or where did you start to get involved into motorsport?
I would not be able to remember. To be very honest, I think where I started to basically become very interested is when I was about to get my first car, because my father, to go back to it, wanted to buy me something very different with little horsepower and so on than I wanted to have. And obviously I wanted to have, back in the days, it was a Uno Turbo, so Fiat, or it would have been a Fiesta RS2. So a bit of those cars that were fancy, and we're talking now year 85 to 90. And that's basically where I started to really get engaged, where I started to understand, okay, is that car light enough? Does it have enough horsepower? How does it go there? And I was starting to read also articles in those days in the press to basically get a sense of it.
Cool. Basically, how Henry Ford said, racing was invented after the second car was built, so I can definitely understand. And tell me a little bit about how did you get into a race car as a driver? Where did you start?
Yeah, so as I was always passionate about cars, I started when my career advanced, because I started to have a bit of money, I started to buy myself quite nice cars, and with the purchase of those cars always came, with the brands from BMW, Audi, and others. They came always track day experiences. That's basically how I started. And then I got deeper involved, especially with BMWs, deeper involved into track day experiences. I booked the one and the other. And then I decided at a certain point in time to basically get a coach that would help me to get really involved into the race driving. And that's how I really got involved into it. So Ralf Kelleners, who is my co-pilot as well today, he's a pro. He has been winning Le Mans 24 hours. He's been one of the guys that basically, together with Michael Schumacher and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, those guys departed for Formula 1. He basically went more the GT area, and he basically was my coach. And that's how we started. We started on a road car, which was a McLaren 600 LT, and we basically started to rebuild the car a bit. So it was a road legal car. So we didn't have slicks, but we started to basically change the camber, put more camber into the car, so basically it would lay flatter on the ground. Would change the brakes, the brake pads, and all of this. So that's how it started. So
you started just understanding how a race car works with different modifications, and then you raced in the GT4 championship.
So I did GT4 European Championship. So the trajectory was, I did about 15 to 18,000 kilometers on this road legal car to really understand what is the braking. How do you go about the apex? When do you apply throttle? What does it mean if the car goes on the apex or no? Does it destabilize? So all of what is needed to basically then move into the next phase. And the next phase was then moving from a road legal car to a race car. My first race car that I took was a GT4 Cayman. And for the first time also slicks. I never drove slicks. So for somebody that never used it, you need to first understand what a slick really means. And once you get that tire warmed up, you already see the big difference to a road legal car, because it glues so much on the ground that it gives you a total different feeling also on the corners. So that was super interesting. And that's basically how then we moved on to other race cars. And after I felt that basically track days are becoming too boring, I said, can't we start with race driving? And that's how I got then involved into the GT4. And then we basically, instead of going GT4 a bit more humble, we went immediately into GT4 European Championship, which was it the best idea? Probably not, but it was still fun.
I really admire this. I've been invited to an endurance race, but to be honest, because in rally driving, you only go one car at a time and you have no traffic. I am not used to looking in the side mirrors, and I'm only used to the traffic in Bucharest, which I guess it's not.
But then you need to have a bit of side mirrors, because in Bucharest, but on the way to here with the taxi, I thought, let's see how often that goes well, because there's a lot of cars coming from left and right and so on.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's a decent training, but it's not the same mentality, I think, when you get into the race car and you have to be fully focused on.
But the only thing is that basically here people are driving randomly in the city. On the racetrack, everybody wants to be fast, so nobody's going to brake at the point where you're not expecting it. So that makes it a bit easier, but you need to first basically understand it. But I think as a rally driver, you will do great, because you have an understanding of what driving means. Yes, you will need to accustom yourself that basically you're not on yourself, you're not alone, but I'm 100% sure that you're going to master that without any problem.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think the biggest challenge is that I have to accommodate with the fact that I am alone in the race car, because in rallying I have my co-driver with me, so I'm always used to having somebody who talks to me. I guess it's kind of similar because you also have team radio. I
have the little man in my ear,
exactly.
So I have an engineer, so I'm connected with the helmet with the engineer, and he basically talks to me. Often I say, I don't. Just shut up. Because talking too much takes away your focus. If you miss the braking point, you know what happens? You miss the corner. You are slow. If you have two guys behind you, those guys are just clapping and say, "Oh, that's great," because now we can overtake it. So talking is okay if there is something that needs to be said. Pay attention to the back, or something is happening before. Move on. Come into the box, whatever. But too much talking is not good.
But I mean, it's a lot of teamwork. It's a process.
Yes.
No, exactly. It's something similar that you find also in business, this kind of teamwork, which requires time and practice and getting to know each other, like you build a relationship with your race engineer. Is it something you apply in business as well?
Absolutely. You need to, because everybody has their own skills. And if the people are positioned the right way, the outcome is a great one. So the output is always great. It's the same for racing. If you have an engineer that doesn't understand the car, the setup is shit, you're not going to get anywhere. If you have somebody that understands it and also is able to talk to you and sort of in the same language, it's like the same in the business. If basically people are going into different direction, the output is going to be zero. So it's sort of this collaboration, this also understanding, building a certain relationship. This is super important. That's the reason why when you do, in business, when you do offsites and the team is new, one of the first things you do is basically is get to know the other. And get to know the other is not only what has he done in his business life. So where is he coming from? What is his interest? What does he like? What does he doesn't like? Because then you better able to judge the person and to work with such a person.
That's cool. Going back to racing,
yes.
You were telling me before the differences between the GT4 and the prototype you drive now. Tell me more about
exactly. So the GT4. So we were talking about the evolution. So when I was getting out of GT4 after 2 years, I reflected, okay, what is now the next step? And the next natural step would have been to basically get involved into GT3, which is a proper race car. The GT4 is not a proper race car. The GT4, in the end of the day, is still a road legal car, which has a cage, which has a bit more stiffness and so on. But in the end of the day, it's still a street legal car, road legal car. Yeah. The GT3 is a proper race car. Has nothing to do with basically the underlying car that you would expect. And but I found then, or I was given the opportunity to test a prototype. And that's where I immediately discovered my love for it. Why? Because it's a total way of driving. You don't have any assistance, so no ABS, no traction control. The whole thing works only about the downforce. And what to me was also super important, it's a very light car. The LMP3 that I'm driving, which is a Ligier, without any fuel and without me being on board, is about 950 kilos. A GT3 car is about 1.5 tons. So
it's quite heavy.
Exactly, and therefore the LMP3 is so much more fun because it's very puristic race driving. You don't go clear. You don't get involved into the curbs, especially not if they're high, because immediately the airstream will cut and you will lose the car. So that is basically what I found. It was difficult in the beginning, because I was too used to jump the curbs and the car would do what I want. So this is something that I needed to learn on the MP, like also the tires blocking, because if you don't have ABS, if you stand too long on the brakes, the car will block. So
yeah. So I think it's making driving more cleaner, let's say.
Yes, it's puristic. It's like it used to be.
Yeah.
Now, if you see sometimes nowadays races on GT3, when you see how they jump the curbs and what they, I mean, it's still nice to look at, but it's not mine.
Yeah. And so far, what has been your most memorable moment in your racing career, and what have you learned from it?
You will laugh. It was just recently I was able to basically get to P4 on a qualifying session in a field of about 41 cars.
Congrats.
Which I found also very good. So that was basically my best performance yet, which tells me that now I have really understood how the LMP3 works. So now it's about very late braking. It's about carrying the speed into the corner. So that's not working pretty well. And this is something that I experienced, and that basically also was very satisfactory. You know, once you have the impression that basically you're really on top of the car, you're really driving fast.
Basically, you always fight with your instincts in your car to convince yourself. It's more of a mental thing, isn't it? So it's
very mental, and it's also overcoming fear sometimes. So, like the racetrack in Mugello, there's a double right-hander that's called arrabbiata, which you need to go flat in the end. But it takes you so much because you see that corner coming in, you don't see where it's going, but still you need to stay on. It's like Eau Rouge in Spa, or if you take Portimao, there's at the end towards the back end, there's a blind corner. So you come in with 240, you know that you need to go right, and you know that there's, but every time, because you don't see anything, it's
yeah. Yeah, I know. I know, because I always go based on what my co-driver says.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a lot of building trust and just trusting your own pace notes in rallying. So I can definitely
But I find
relate
this is something I have always found very interesting, because I've never experienced it. So basically, because you are, as you say, you're relying and trusting your partner because he tells you what to do.
Yeah.
And
in rallying, you drive based on what you hear, not what you see, because you have to anticipate the next corners, and your co-driver always tells you the next 1, 2, 3 corners. It depends on the speed.
And what does he tell you? Does he tell you the gear and the braking zone?
No, only left, right. And our pace nose system is from 1 to 6.
Okay.
So 1 is a hairpin, 6 is almost flat out, almost a straight corner, and the distance in between. So the pace nose sound like left 2, 50, like 50 meters, right 3, for example.
Okay.
Which right 3 is not 90 degrees, but
it's quite a corner, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a corner.
Yeah.
And then we add some details like if you can cut or not, because for us, we are basically all over the place. On tarmac, you have less space to play with the car. On gravel, it's much more fun. Because you can slide, and you only need details if you have, like, don't cut trees or a ditch or you will fall down a mountain or whatever.
That's not a good idea, no?
Yeah, I mean, basically we are used to the context, so it's... No, it's said that sport teaches you first how to lose. How do you approach risks and failures in sport and in business?
Probably the same. I mean, it's a bit depending on also your character. My favorite say is no risk, no fun, and that's exactly what it is. You always, but what you try to have as a sports mind, but also as a business mind, is you need to try to be as cold as possible. you try to basically keep your emotions under control, because if you're able to keep your emotions under control, you will also limit the danger of the risk that you're taking. If you're not, then obviously you're going wild, and this is very dangerous. And this is dangerous for business as well as for a car, or for the race driving, because on the business you should basically judge or do your judgments mainly on data, certainly a bit of gut feeling, and the same is also with the car. You know how much data we are unlocking from the car to basically work on the setup and so on. That's so far it's very comparable, but it goes into different directions.
Mm. You were mentioning other sports, and I know you were a professional tennis player.
Professional is probably a bit too much, but I was an okay tennis player. Let's put it this way. Let's be humble.
Okay. I mean, I also play tennis myself, sometimes only for fun. And I am fascinated by something I learned by playing tennis and by racing rally cars, that you have to be fully present in that moment, and you have to focus on the point or on the corner you are about to drive in. And when you make a mistake, you have to reset and refocus instantly to be able to take the next point or the next corner. Is it something you also found in motorsport, or you use in business, this ability to reset after you make a mistake?
So first of all, I couldn't agree more around tennis and car driving. The only difference that I would suggest is on tennis, you cannot crash, so nothing is going to happen to you. In a car, it's a bit of a different story, so therefore there the focus and the reset is more important. But it's certainly something that basically I'm also noticing, and probably it's all on those sports that are called individual sports, where you basically you're on yourself. If you exercise a team sport like soccer or stuff like that, even if your performance is not at the top, that does not immediately impact the rest. But if your performance in a single sport is not on top, you can forget about it. That's very simple. Yeah. And so to me is also a bit the business. You can, because you're surrounded by a team, you can also sometimes have, let's say, days they probably run at 50% instead of 100. If the people around you still continues to carry you, that works. But this is not the case in basically in certain sports areas, because if you're just on your own, you're on your own. But the reset element, this is certainly something that you need always to also to do in business, but also not so much because of the comparison to sport, but because on the business, there's a lot of things that are happening, which probably may also disappoint or upset you. And this is something that you need to also leave behind, because then you get into this emotional rat race, and that's nothing you want to get into.
And how do you reset? Do you have
my
secret routine?
My reset routine, I mean, probably I have always been very much involved in sports. So sports is something that's super important for me to relax. I started about 4 years ago with yoga, which I found very relaxing and helpful also on mobility. Mm-hmm. So especially when you're as a race driver, where you have a lot of elements, G-forces that basically
next train.
Exactly. So that's something where yoga helps a lot. So those are the things that basically do really help me to calm down. In general, when I'm in the business or when I'm in the car, I'm quite a calm person. I never shout. I never react with big emotions. So this is something where then the sports helps me a lot to basically also something that I've inherent in me. I'll be able to calm it down.
I can definitely understand. And do you have a special routine in your life to prepare you for high pressure moments in sport or in business?
The only thing that really I care about, Christiana, is I try to sleep enough.
Okay.
That's important for me. I try to basically get 7 hours of sleep at night.
This is a very
preferably even
basic but very important aspect.
Absolutely. And obviously healthy nutrition.
Yeah.
Because the older you get, and I'm not the youngest anymore, it's something that also has an impact. So I would say that basically on my daily life, sleeping enough and eating okay helps a lot.
Cool. to go a little bit into the business part of things.
Yes.
In Romania, a lot of people still believe that OLX is just a local platform. But of course, it's part of a bigger international group with business all around the world. Can you tell me more about what it means?
Absolutely. So, interestingly enough, OLX stands for online exchange. So first, to also uncover what OLX, because I did ask the question myself. So what is it? What is this? So OLX stands for online exchange, and OLX is a brand that is basically present across the world: Brazil, South Africa, obviously very strong in Central and Eastern Europe. And OLX is not only one brand. OLX is a group name and carries the brand of a certain amount of categories, but we have a lot of other categories that people don't associate with the name of OLX, but is still under OLX, like Autovit, like Storia, to name two out of Romania, but the same is also in Poland with Autodom and Automoto. We have Property24 in South Africa. We have Autotrader in South Africa. So we have a lot of brands. Obviously, our common brand is OLX, and that's basically the brand that represents us worldwide. And our aspiration for the business is not only to basically stay in the countries where we are. We're also looking outside of those countries to see whether there's opportunities for us to expand.
Can you tell me more about your career journey so far and how you became the CEO of OLX Group?
I have a history. I have a history in the classified. So before joining OLX, which I very happily did, I started my career in the classified space in 2014 with Scout24. Scout24 is a very big brand in Germany. And I was basically back in the days the CFO of the group, and I was the one that was running Scout24, which may be a brand that is probably even known in Romania. And that's where I discovered my passion for the classifieds, because I hadn't heard before of it, and I never worked in this before, because prior to this I was very much working on the media side, broadcast, cinemas.
Oh, cool.
So that was and then I decided to become more digital. That's where I then moved into classifieds. And after I left basically Scout, I stayed in classifieds. So I became chairman of different businesses across Europe. And when OLX called me, I was absolutely happy to basically engage, because OLX is within the classified space a household brand. It's very much known. I know that it's probably not as known to the outside, but if you are working in that space, in that category, it's a very known name.
As a frequent OLX user, I believe that sustainability is at the core of this kind of business, because it basically ensures a longer lifespan of products, which is something quite special today. How do you believe that artificial intelligence affects the business? How do you see it?
So the circular economy is something that basically is top of our mind, because that's what we're supporting. So we are most of the time we are C2C, we are also B2C. We are rarely referring to new goods, but we're mainly referring to used goods, which is good. I mean, obviously we also enter in the space of new goods, and this is something that brings us very close to the circular economy, that brings us very close to the sustainability. AI, Christiana, has an impact, and you need to look at it from two different angles. The one is basically what AI has an impact internally. So, efficiency, how much can you automate? What are the things that basically can be done nowadays by chatbots? How present can they be? How precise can they be? So you have a question around whatever, you come to our site, you come to the app, you ask a question, and the chatbot will give you exactly the right answer. So this is something where AI is already today workable, and where we're using AI. And a lot of other companies are using AI as well. Then there's this other AI that is towards the outside world, so towards the customer. So towards Christiana, that is basically wanting to acquire a car, a TV set, and so on. So that's something where we're working on. We're still very, very new to this, because we need to identify what you really like, because what I believe you like, it doesn't mean that this is exactly what you like. So we're very much learning from the data, and AI works only if you have a lot of data, because it's a data model, it's a large language model, as you call it, that will help to identify what are the right products, what is basically the experience that you're looking for, and those are the things that we're identifying. And obviously this will make it for the circular economy mostly relevant, because we'll be even more personalized to the things that you will be looking for. So this will again save your time, make it more efficient, and then on the other side will continue to spin this circular economy element.
So in the end, it's also about speed, even in business.
Yeah, but you know, it's like the most used apps are the ones where you do only 2 clicks. Mm-hmm. Because it's all about speed. It's all about this convenience, this experience. Yeah. If you have taken a decision, you want to get fast, and you don't want to have anything in between. And that's a bit what AI is also trying to achieve. AI wants to basically put in front of you what you're really searching, and not basically forcing you to go via 10 detail pages until you find the right element. Mm-hmm. So there is this. We have started to work on a product we call OLX Magic, which is a conversational search interface, which works via conversation. So you say something, and the machine asks you, and then it gets more and more refined, and it gets you much faster to probably the search result than if you would go to the search via the filters like you do it nowadays. Mm-hmm.
So like a personal shopping assistant.
Exactly.
This is very interesting.
And going forward, you probably will call this partially even agents, because there will be agents that basically they are sort of robots, and they will help you. But nice. It's a long way to get there.
Yeah.
It's a long way, because obviously those models are not. The amount of data that you need to generate the right response and so on is not there yet. So it will take a while, but it's still very fast.
So slowly going back to cars, in automotive, sustainability is usually nowadays associated with electric cars. Mm-hmm. What's your perspective on them?
I think electric cars is a wonderful part to underpin sustainability, especially if we're thinking about cities, because that's where the pollution is really created. I think on the long haul, not sure whether electric does so much help to sustainability, but I think in the cities and for trajectories of, let's say, 40, 50 kilometers for people that have to drive, I think it's great. It's saving money, because it's obviously it's less expensive than fuel. It doesn't create any air pollution. So in that respect, I think electric vehicle and whatever may come thereafter is great.
How do you see the role of OLX Group in the automotive marketplace?
So as a player in that space, we are very much open to every sort of new product. We are trying to basically give our customers what they want, and that's you know, the way I call it is simple, easy, and stress-free. And what I mean by that is basically that the automotive industry is always trying to sell cars, and we're trying to help them to sell cars, because we have the customers, the consumers, that want those cars, and we're trying to bring them as fast together as we can. And I believe that in that respect we're very good. That's the reason why we're also the number one in Romania, but not only in Romania, also in Poland and other countries.
What global trends do you foresee for online car buying and selling?
Yeah, so if you look into the world, you will see that the CRM software for dealers is one of the important elements, namely helping them also with AI and data to buy the right car at the right price for their clientele. That means that also the data will tell them also what is the right car in that borough, because not every borough is the same. So it may be that in one area you have cars that do not fit to your consumers, but those cars would fit much better in another area. And those are things that we are working on to provide the dealer with this intelligence, so that basically his decision making is basically helping him to drive his business in a more excellent form, which on the other side is always good for our consumers, because our consumers is what we really care about, is to make sure that they will always find what they're looking for on our site.
Okay, so it's everything about having the information, the correct one, the complete information.
Transparency, pricing, rating of the dealer, car history. Everything that basically gives you a good feeling when you buy a car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's a lot of responsibility.
Absolutely. I mean, cars are not, it's not like a cup of coffee. A car you don't buy, I mean, depending on whom you look at, there's probably a 2-3 times transaction in the life of somebody. So it's very precious. And that's the reason why you need to basically provide the consumer with as much information as you can, because you want him, whatever he believes is the right transaction. It's not me to decide, but I want him to give the opportunity to really perform the transaction he wants to perform.
Going back to sport, I wanted to ask you what is the best advice you've ever received from another driver or a mentor, and you would like to pass forward?
So it's funny, because it's something I'm doing still today. So I remember in my early days, somebody said to me, if you sit into the car, close your eyes and breathe 4 times very deeply, to basically get rid of the adrenaline that you don't need. And that's something I'm still doing.
Okay.
And it's very helpful, because it's a routine. It's something, whether it's true or not, doesn't make a difference. I believe into it, and it gives me a certain amount of confidence, and it helps me. That's fine.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because you give me such, simple gestures, but which everybody can apply, but I think they're very powerful.
They are.
Even in sport or in business or in whatever high pressure situation you are, before taking a decision, get enough sleep, breathe 4 times. I think it's... And
yoga. That's the reason why I was mentioning yoga. Yeah. Yoga is something I discovered for me, which again is not about only mobility. It's also about breathing. It's about have the ability to relax. So when you have done your yoga session, at the end you do what you call the shavasana. So you lay down and basically you really calm down. And it's interesting how fast you can then really calm down. You get in this meditation mode. And I'm not a guy that basically is very much psychedelic, but it's something that works really well. And that's the reason why I was saying, this breathing 4 times, very deep, focus, have your eyes closed, eliminate everything around you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And I would add to this, one of the best advices I got when I was I was driving at a rally in Germany.
Yeah.
I was asked...
Where there?
Near Sulingen.
Yeah, okay. Sulingen.
Sulingen, yeah. Yes.
Which is very hilly, because that's, okay.
Yeah, well, this is why they had a rally in the region.
It's close to my hometown, so that's the reason why I know
cool. it. So I was asked at the end of the stage if I had fun. How was it? And I started telling them, I didn't choose the right tires, I was too slow in that corner. No, did you have fun? So this was a key question for me, which made me realize that if you're not having fun along the way, you're missing the point.
Yes.
So do you agree with this?
I agree with this. So and if I translate it into business, when I joined OLX, I did a lot of travel into different offices. And somebody asked me what I think about work-life balance. And I look at the person and I said, well, very simple. For me, there is no contradiction between the two. Because if I don't like my work, my life balance is bad. So I can have as much life balance as I want if I don't like the work. So, and that goes back. If I'm spending so much time at work, if this is not fun to me, I should quit and should go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which is sort of the analogy to it.
So it comes down to being passionate about everything you do.
And embracing what you're doing. And if you don't, do something else. There's so much opportunity out there. Nobody forces you.
Yeah. For sure, your personal experiences shaped your leadership style. Mm-hmm. How would you characterize your leading style?
I'm a very bad place to say it myself. Probably we should run a survey thereafter. We should ask about 10 people around me. I think the way that people perceive me, I think they would say the guy is ambitious, the guy is a bit crazy, the guy is open for risk, but he still is very relaxed, and he's a team player. He knows the direction, but he will never force it if the team is not happy to take direction. So that's probably,
this is beautiful.
Sort of. I hope this is the case. I mean, I'm trying to pretend. I hope this is the case.
Everybody can write their comments in the section below.
Yeah.
So moving forward, what are your key priorities and your vision for OLX Group in the future?
The sky is the limit. I mean, OLX is a wonderful brand. We have in all of the countries we have number one positionings. We are loved by our customers, even though sometimes they write us that they hate us. But in general, our customers love us. We have a very good relationship to our business clients, whether they are dealers or agents. If we think about the real estate side of our business, so I think overall in this case we are a very well set up company, and that's the reason why we're striving not only for what I call the organic growth, so continue to grow in those areas where we are, because we are in markets that still have a big growth potential. Romania is a good example. Poland is a good example. But on the other side, we're also happy to expand, because we since we know how to run it, we can also go outside of where we are and basically prove our business agility there.
To sum it up, I want to ask you, what are top 3 values you appreciate in life in general, not only in business?
Which is, I think that these are very good questions, because this is very personal. So it's honesty to me, certain amount of humbleness, and basically fun in life. So enjoying life. It's something to me. That's something very important. I always characterize myself. My glass is always half full. That's the reason why I always I'm in good mood, even if things are not as they should be. I always find the twist to say, okay, even if I've learned something and I can move on.
But okay, I will not stop here, because I still want to ask you something else. In motorsport, when you have a bad race, you say, your glass is always half full. Mm-hmm. How do you manage, not the disappointment, but not being there? How do you just accept the process and let go, trusting the whole?
I mean, in the end of the day, and this is something that also is comparable with tennis. If basically it was a bad race, it has to deal with me. Something was not right. Probably I was not focused enough on the day. For whatever reason, I made a mistake. Probably I was too emotional. So this is something that I need to reflect. And obviously this is something I need to learn about, because then there was something. And for the next time, I need to understand that basically this should not repeat. It's like with failures in business. You can make failures in business. There's no problem about this. Nobody is perfect. And the same is basically also in a car. If I have, like in the last race. So I went on P4, qualifying. Out of 40 people, that was good. I was happy. Then the race started, and we were on wet tires because it started to rain. The problem is my wet tire we didn't have enough wet tires with us. We just had one pair of new, and the one that I started with was a pair of old. In the second lap, I spun. So now I can say, it was the old tire. Yes, it was the old tire. Would I have had a new, I would have not spun. But if you have an old tire, you probably push a bit less. You let you overtake by 2 people, but you're not overtaken by the whole field because you spun. At that moment, I was super angry about this old tire. But in the end, as I reflected, that's not the tire. That's your problem. You need to manage. You know what you have, because I was aware of it. So why do I push as much as if I would have a new tire?
That's very cool. I actually asked you this because it's the perfect example of how you apply humble and honesty to motorsport and to what you do. And
that's also the reason why I say my glass is half full, because if my glass is half empty, I'm always complaining. That's also something I can do, but it's not gonna advance me in life. If I basically acknowledge what I've done wrong, the next time it should not happen again. So for the end of our journey today, I
already? No, you still have a few questions left, so for sure we can carry on. But I have 5 high-speed questions for you. So, what was your first car?
Ford Fiesta, 45 horsepower, originating, was a new car out of, I think, December 85.
What color?
Black. Okay. And the car has far more watt because I had a very loud music element in it than I had horsepower.
Good balance, I would say. What car do you currently drive?
I have my daily driver is a BMW M2 CS. It's a very nice car. It's not light, but it's a very fun car. I mean, you need to be careful because it gives you a lot of oversteer, so it's a very nervous car. Yep. But if you're used to drive, it creates a lot of fun, especially if you have summer tires in wet conditions. Woo!
Okay, I know you've been in a lot of road trips around Europe because you are, of course, very passionate about driving and about driving special cars. If you would choose one road I should drive, what would that be?
There are a couple of them, it's very difficult.
You can make a top 3 if you want.
So I would say, Passo di Stelvio, when you drive it from the Swiss to the Italian side. The Italian side is a bit more boring, but the Swiss side, driving the Swiss side up and then driving down on the Italian side, that's fun. Then it's Timmelsjoch, which is also starting from Austria and ending in Italy. And there's one other which I have forgotten the name that is also in Italy. So most of the passes, they basically are either located between Austria and Italy, or in Italy itself. So basically, also if you go into the Dolomites and you take the Dolomites, that's wonderful. It's if you have cars that basically then that have a bit of oversteer, and you can in the first or second gear you can let them come and so on. That's.
What cars would you drive there? Also, top 3 you can choose.
So I think the cars that you would drive there are cars that basically
tick off a bucket list.
That are light. So I would go for McLarens. I would probably go for the older Ferraris, so La 458 Speciale. So cars that basically have a lot of power, little weight, so that basically you can give them this little kick when you come out of the corner.
Okay. That sounds very good. So already,
big fun. You see my smile.
Our viewers, go to book their plane tickets.
They should, because it's fun. I mean, the problem is that nowadays, because those streets and those paths have become so famous, it's difficult to drive because you have a lot of motorcycles, you have a lot of race cycle, so it has become dangerous. So it's if you do that, you need to do it rather in the morning or in the late afternoon. Obviously, you need to be careful because it's colder. So the tire needs to warm, but then it's fun.
All respecting the safety measures. So.
Absolutely, no, and be within the speed limits and all of that. No.
What's one advice you would give to somebody who's looking to buy a car?
Go on Autovit and search for what you're looking. I mean, the good thing today, everything is digital. So you can find whatever you want, and you would in Romania you would always go on Autovit because it's the largest inventory, it's the largest supply. The way basically the cars are featured, the way you search, you browse it, the detail amount is just great.
Good. So let's actually do this, because my final question is, what dream street car would you search for on Autovit?
I would go for an RS6. Okay. Why would I? Because it helps me with the dogs. It helps me once grandchildren are here. So that's basically, and it's a very fast and very reliable car. It's not a very new car, as you know. I mean, it started, I think, when I drove one of the first RS6s, and I remember back, we're talking 2001.
So it's a family car. So yes. Just to be clear,
and back in those days, you could have it as a brake, but also as a 4-door car only. Mm-hmm.
We have actually 9 cars available on Autovit.
But I would always go then for the 2024. And it's a very nice car. So that's a nice color. It's in BMW would call it Hockenheim Silber. I think Porsche would call it Crayon, because it looks a bit like the
graphite.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one of it.
How much is it here in Romania?
124,000 euros.
And the net price is
104 net.
That's quite okay price.
23, only 13,000 kilometers, so 600 horsepower.
Yeah, no, it's fast enough. That's not the problem.
We have some budget options. 2020, red one, 2019, also 600 horsepower.
Yeah, I would go for the 2023. I would probably always go for the younger models, but it's a bit depending also on as you say on the budget you have. Yeah. But as you can see on Autovit, you will find different budgets because you will find basically what is really available on the market.
Thank you very much for this talk. It was a real inspiration to find out more about your story and to share it with our community.
Christiana, thank you very much. It was a big pleasure. It was big fun, and we had a blast. I think around the race drive. So it's good we share the same passion. So that was very, very big fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Rămâi aproape. Asigură-te că ai centura pusă pentru că urmează și alte episoade pline de inspirație la Povești de drum lung, un podcast Autovit.ro.